There is a moment in the history of American music when the man who had spent his entire life singing about walking the line finally stepped off of it, crossing over into the great unknown. In the early hours of a Friday morning, the rhythmic chugging of a freight train that had echoed through countless recordings fell silent forever, and the world lost one of its most complex, beloved, and tortured souls. The news spread like wildfire through the streets of Nashville, a city that had become his home and his sanctuary, and from the honky-tonks of Lower Broadway to the hallowed halls of the Ryman Auditorium, a collective gasp was heard as fans and fellow musicians alike struggled to process the magnitude of the loss. This was not merely the passing of a singer or a celebrity. This was the end of an era, the closing of a chapter in the great American story that had been written in sweat, tears, and the indelible ink of 1,000 songs. This is the story of the man who made black the uniform of the outsider, who turned prison walls into stages and personal agony into art, who wrestled with demons both chemical and spiritual and emerged, time and again, with a voice that could shatter the silence of the damned. This is the story of the man simply known as the Man in Black, the towering figure whose legacy would stretch far beyond the boundaries of country music to touch the very soul of popular culture, Johnny Cash. Born simply as J.A. Cash on a cold February morning in 1932, in the tiny farming community of Kingsland, Arkansas, he entered the world not as a legend, but as the fourth of 7 children born to Ray and Carrie Cash, a couple whose own dreams had been crushed by the relentless machinery of poverty. His parents, struggling cotton farmers grappling with the devastating realities of the Great Depression, could not agree on a first name for their newborn, so they settled on initials, a pragmatic decision that would follow him until Sam Phillips, the visionary owner of Sun Records, later christened him Johnny. Ray Cash was a hard man, a farmer who had seen his own father die in a cotton gin accident, a man whose emotional vocabulary was limited to work and survival. Carrie, however, was a woman of deep faith and quiet strength, a woman who sang hymns while she cooked and who saw in her children the seeds of something greater than the cotton fields that surrounded them. The family's financial situation was dire, a relentless grind of poverty and hard labor that would forever shape Cash's worldview and his music. When he was just 3 years old, the Cash family moved to the Dyers Colony, a government resettlement community in Mississippi County, Arkansas, where they were given a small plot of land and a house. This was a home born of survival, a cramped wooden structure in the middle of the cotton fields, a place where the dust of the earth got into everything and the daily struggle for existence was a harsh reality. The house had no electricity and no running water, and the family survived on what they could grow and what little they could earn from the sale of their cotton. It was in this unforgiving environment that the foundations of Johnny Cash's character were laid, a deep and abiding empathy for the poor and the downtrodden, a fierce independence, and a spiritual longing that would find its expression in the gospel songs he would sing for the rest of his life. The landscape of his childhood was one of backbreaking labor, religious fervor, and the haunting tragedy that would become a recurring theme in his life. Young J.R. worked in the cotton fields alongside his family from the age of 5, the brutal heat and the endless rows of cotton instilling in him a deep empathy for the working poor that would later fuel songs like Folsom Prison Blues and Man in Black. The work was relentless, and the pay was meager, but it taught him the value of hard work and the dignity of labor. His mother, Carrie, was the emotional and spiritual center of the family, a devout woman who introduced him to the spirituals and folk songs of the rural South. She taught him the guitar, showing him the basic chords on an old instrument that had been passed down through the family, and the local Church of God provided the soundtrack to his early life, a world of hymns, gospel harmonies, and the promise of redemption. The family, particularly his mother, had always turned to songs for comfort and inspiration. Soon after he started grade school, J.R. knew he wanted to be a singer on the radio. He would listen to the broadcasts from Memphis and Nashville, dreaming of the day when his own voice would be heard across the airwaves. But the darkness that would pervade his music began to take shape early on. In 1944, when Cash was just 12 years old, his beloved older brother, Jack, was tragically killed in a sawmill accident, nearly cut in two. Jack had been a bright, promising young man, a student of the Bible who was planning to become a minister, and his death devastated the family. The profound grief and guilt that Cash carried from this loss, the feeling that he had somehow been spared while his brother was taken, imbued his music with a deep, resonant melancholy that would never fully leave him. Despite the sorrow, he found solace in his faith and his music, performing locally and dreaming of escaping the cotton fields. He attended Dyers High School, and it was there that he had his first taste of public performance, singing on the local radio station KLCN in Blytheville, Arkansas, a moment that cemented his ambition and showed him that his voice had the power to move people. Graduating in 1950 in the midst of the Korean War, there was no money for college, and the future seemed uncertain. After a brief, fruitless search for work in Michigan, where he worked in a factory and felt the crushing weight of a life he did not want, Cash enlisted in the United States Air Force, seeking both purpose and escape. His time in the military would prove to be a crucible, a period of intense transformation that would forge the man he would become. Stationed in Landsberg, West Germany, Cash was far from the cotton fields of Arkansas but found a new kind of freedom. He bought his first guitar for a mere $5 from a fellow soldier who needed the money, and formed his first band, the Landsberg Barbarians, a group of like-minded young men who shared his passion for music. It was during this period of solitude and service that he began to write songs in earnest, finding a voice for the loneliness and the longing he felt, the deep sense of displacement that came from being so far from home. The rhythmic chugging of the trains he heard in Germany would later inspire the iconic Folsom Prison Blues, a song he began writing while stationed overseas, the sound of the wheels on the tracks echoing in his mind as he imagined the lives of the prisoners he had never met. He received an honorable discharge in 1954 and returned to the United States, a man with a clear vision of his future and a burning desire to make his mark on the world. He settled in Memphis, Tennessee, the crucible of a new American sound, and married his first wife, Vivian Liberto, whom he had met during basic training in San Antonio, a woman who had waited for him faithfully throughout his military service. To support his new family, Cash worked as an appliance salesman while taking radio broadcasting classes. but his heart was set on music. In Memphis, he met two mechanics, Luther Perkins and Marshall Grant, whose sparse, minimalist style would come to define his early sound. They formed a trio and began performing gospel songs in church and on local radio station KWEM, their unique sound attracting the attention of the local music scene. In 1954, driven by ambition and a belief in his own talent, Cash and his band walked into the legendary Sun Studios and auditioned for Sam Phillips, the man who had discovered Elvis Presley. Phillips, who had just launched the career of the king of rock and roll, heard something unique in Cash's voice, a deep, resonant bass baritone that was both mournful and powerful, a voice that sounded like it had been worn smooth by hard living and harder prayer. He signed him to the label, gave him the name Johnny Cash, and dubbed his band Johnny Cash and the Tennessee Two, setting the stage for one of the most remarkable careers in music history. In 1955, they released their first single, the double-sided hit Cry, 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 backed with Hey Porter, which sold over 100,000 copies and marked the arrival of a new force in music, a sound that was neither pure country nor pure rock and roll but something entirely new. Cash toured relentlessly with other Sun artists like Elvis Presley and Carl Perkins, his star rising fast, his name becoming synonymous with the rebellious spirit of a new generation. The following year, he recorded I Walk the Line, a song that became his first #1 hit, its distinctive boom-chicka-boom rhythm and heartfelt promise of fidelity capturing the nation's imagination and establishing him as a major star. By 1957, Johnny Cash was the top-selling artist in country and western music, a fact that was as much a testament to his talent as it was to his relentless work ethic. He had become a star, but he was a restless one, a man who could never quite shake the feeling that he was a fraud, that his success had come too easily and that it would all be taken away. In 1958, feeling constrained by his contract and the limitations of the Sun label, he left Sun Records for a lucrative deal with Columbia Records, a move that would define the next phase of his career, allowing him to explore concept albums and tackle more ambitious projects. It was a decision that would cost him the loyalty of Sam Phillips, but would ultimately allow him to reach his full artistic potential. Hits like Don't Take Your Guns to Town and The Fiery Ring of Fire, a song that vividly captured the intoxicating and painful nature of his love for June Carter, solidified his place in the pantheon of American music and showed the world a new, more mature Johnny Cash. His career during this period was a whirlwind of success, a dizzying ascent that saw him selling out arenas across the country and appearing on the most popular television shows of the era. Yet, Cash was a man increasingly at war with himself, a walking contradiction who preached redemption while indulging in self-destruction. He was a deeply spiritual person whose music was filled with tales of redemption, yet he was also a man struggling with a growing addiction to amphetamines and barbiturates, a dependency that had begun as a way to cope with the punishing demands of touring and had slowly taken over his life. The pressures of fame, the relentless touring, and the emotional turmoil of his failing first marriage, Vivian filed for divorce in 1966, drove him deeper into substance abuse, turning him into a man his own family could barely recognize. The mid-1960s were a dark time. His behavior became erratic, his performances were often sloppy, and his career was in decline, the hits drying up and the money beginning to run out. He was falling apart, a brilliant artist on the brink of self-destruction, his life a slow-motion car crash that seemed inevitable. But even in his darkest moments, there was a guiding light. June Carter, a member of the legendary Carter family, a woman who had been singing gospel and folk music since she was a child. She had been a friend and collaborator since 1961, and she saw the good in him even when he couldn't see it himself. She stood by him, refusing to give up, refusing to let him destroy himself, and eventually helped him get clean, staging an intervention that would save his life. In 1968, at the height of his personal turmoil, they were married, a union that would stabilize his life and reignite his career, proving that love could indeed conquer all. The marriage to June Carter was a turning point, a rebirth that led to one of the most remarkable comebacks in music history, a story of redemption that seemed almost too perfect to be true. The signal event was the recording of Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison in 1968, a decision that was as risky as it was inspired. It was a live performance in front of 2,000 hardened inmates, men who had committed terrible crimes and were serving out their sentences behind bars, but it was the perfect opportunity for Cash to re-establish his relevance and to reconnect with the working-class audience that had always been his core. The album was a raw, electrifying testament to his empathy for the downtrodden, a performance that was as much about redemption as it was about music, and it was a massive critical and commercial success. The single A Boy Named Sue became a crossover hit, reaching #1 on the pop charts, and Cash was suddenly a star to a new generation of listeners who had never heard his earlier music. He followed it up with Johnny Cash at San Quentin in 1969, which produced the hit A Boy Named Sue and further cemented his image as a champion of the poor and incarcerated, a man who was not afraid to stand up for those who had been forgotten by society. His popularity reached a fever pitch, leading to his own television show, The Johnny Cash Show, which ran from 1969 to 1971 and was a groundbreaking variety show that deviated from the norm by featuring not just country stars but also artists like Bob Dylan, Ray Charles, and Neil Young, showcasing his eclectic musical taste and cementing his status as a cultural icon. At his peak, he was selling out arenas, dominating the charts, and his net worth was estimated to be between $60 million and $100 million, a staggering fortune that was a testament to his enduring appeal. He lived in a sprawling lakeside mansion in Hendersonville, Tennessee, a place of peace and refuge for him and his family, a home that was filled with music and laughter and the love of his children. He owned a fleet of luxury cars, including a 1965 Chrysler 300 and a Cadillac, but despite the trappings of wealth, he remained the man in black, a symbol of defiance and solidarity with the common man, a reminder that fame and fortune did not have to change who you were at your core. He had become a part of the fabric of American life, a voice for the voiceless, a man whose music had the power to heal wounds and bridge divides. But as the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, his star began to wane once more, the hits dried up, and he faced dwindling record sales and a changing musical landscape that seemed to have no place for him. His health began to decline, plagued by a lifetime of hard living and the lingering effects of his addictions, and he underwent a series of surgeries that left him weakened and in pain. Yet, even in his twilight years, Johnny Cash was not finished, his spirit unbroken and his voice still powerful. In what would become the final, triumphant chapter of his career, Cash signed with producer Rick Rubin's American Recordings label in 1994, a partnership that would introduce him to a new generation and cement his place in the pantheon of musical legends. The partnership resulted in a series of stripped-down, raw albums that stripped away the orchestral arrangements of his later years and returned him to his core: a voice, a guitar, and a song, the simple formula that had made him a star in the first place. The first album, simply titled American Recordings, was a critical success and introduced him to a new generation of fans who had been raised on grunge and alternative rock, showing them that country music could be just as raw and powerful as anything they were listening to. He followed it with a series of remarkable albums that included covers of songs by artists like Nine Inch Nails, Depeche Mode, and U2, his weathered voice breathing new life and profound meaning into modern classics, his interpretations often surpassing the originals in their emotional depth. His cover of the Nine Inch Nails song Hurt became a haunting epitaph for his life, a powerful, heartbreaking video that won him a Grammy and remains one of the most poignant pieces of art ever created, a stark and unflinching look at the passage of time and the weight of regret. But this renaissance was shadowed by immense personal loss. On May 15, 2003, his beloved wife June Carter Cash died following complications from heart surgery, a loss that shattered him to his very core. Friends said he was never the same, that the light had gone out of his eyes and that he was simply waiting to join her. The man who had spent his life writing and singing about love and loss was now living its ultimate pain, a grief that was almost too much to bear. Just 4 months later, in the early hours of September 12, 2003, Johnny Cash died at the age of 71 in a Nashville hospital, his body finally giving out after years of battle. The official cause of death was respiratory failure caused by complications from diabetes, but those who knew him best knew that he had died of a broken heart. He was laid to rest next to his beloved June in the Hendersonville Memory Gardens, near the lake they had shared, their final resting place a testament to the enduring power of their love. His death, coming so soon after hers, was a final, tragic love story that moved the world and reminded everyone of the fragility of life. The aftermath of his passing was a global outpouring of grief, a wave of emotion that swept across the world and touched millions of people who had never even met him. Fans from all walks of life, from presidents to prisoners, mourned the loss of the man in black, a man who had given voice to their own struggles and triumphs. A private funeral service was held at the First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, attended by family and close friends, including former Vice President Al Gore, a testament to his political and cultural significance. Tributes poured in from around the world, a testament to his profound impact on music and culture, from country music legends like Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson to rock icons like Bono and Trent Reznor, all of whom acknowledged the debt they owed to him. He left behind a remarkable legacy: 5 children, Roseanne, Kathy, Cindy, Tara, and John Carter Cash, and a body of work that has sold over 90 million records worldwide, a staggering number that is a testament to his enduring appeal. He had earned 13 Grammy Awards, including a Lifetime Achievement Award, and was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Gospel Music Hall of Fame, the only artist to be inducted into all three, a testament to his versatility and his impact on American culture. His music, filled with stories of sorrow, moral tribulation, and redemption, continues to resonate with listeners of all ages, his voice a constant companion to those who seek solace in his songs. Johnny Cash was more than a singer. He was a symbol of the human condition, flawed, struggling, but always seeking a higher ground, a man who embodied the contradictions of the American experience. He walked the line between sinner and saint, between darkness and light, and in doing so, he gave a voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless, a gift that will continue to inspire generations to come. His story is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, redemption is possible, and that the power of music can transcend time itself, a lesson that is as relevant today as it was when he first picked up a guitar. And as we remember the man who sang about the pain of the human heart, we are left to wonder, what would the world sound like if Johnny Cash had never sung? What would we do without his voice, his truth, his eternal, unwavering integrity? He may be gone, but his legacy is eternal, a testament to the enduring power of art and the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that the music never really dies. If this story of the man in black moved you, please show your appreciation by liking this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the Before Die channel for more untold stories of the legends we've lost. Tell us in the comments below, what is your favorite Johnny Cash song and what does it mean to you? And hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the lives of the icons who shaped our world.